This video is a guide to how you can set up and use a ProtoStax enclosure for your next DIY electronics or computing project. Hi there, I'm Sridhar Rajagopal, founder and creator of ProtoStax, a stackable and modular enclosure system for your Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, and other single board computers and microcontrollers that you can use all the way from initial prototyping to a fully finished enclosure that has tons of features. The enclosure itself comes in a simple Ziploc bag like this. Okay, let's go ahead and open up the Ziploc bag. ProtoStax enclosures usually come with 6 pieces. Sometimes they may come with an extra piece or two to support different configurations. For example, ProtoStax for Raspberry Pi B+ supports both the 3B+ model as well as the newer Model 4 and comes with an extra piece to enable that support. In addition to the pieces, you also have a smaller Ziploc bag that contains all of the necessary hardware. The first thing that we would want to do is to go ahead and remove the protective backing from all of the pieces. I've gone ahead and removed the protective backing from all of the pieces and also laid them out. So let's go ahead and take quick stock of the various components, shall we? First, we have the bottom or base plate. This is where your board is going to be mounted. And it comes with the necessary mounting holes for your board. One thing to note is that the mounting holes have screw threads already tapped in them. So you can directly screw your board onto the base plate without the need for an extra nut and having to hold it and fumble around with it. It just makes life a whole lot easier. Then we have the top plate, which goes on top of the enclosure, obviously. We have 2 long side walls that fit into the slots on the base plate, like so. Similarly, we have 2 short side walls that go on the other side. We also have vertical bracing elements that go on the 4 corners of the enclosure, away from the interior of the enclosure in order to maximize space. The vertical bracing elements are split into upper and lower bracing elements, and each comes with a washer. And the reason for splitting them up will become apparent as we look at the different configurations that ProtoStax will support. At the bottom of the enclosure, we have rubber feet, and these are removable as well. They serve to protect your surface and also elevate the enclosure for increased airflow. But in those situations, for example, when you're vertically stacking different enclosures and you don't want your rubber feet, it is nice to be able to remove them and not have something stuck on. The rubber feet also come with washers, and there are these nuts that go at the bottom of the rubber feet. We have 4 screws that go on the top of the enclosure to close everything up and hold everything in place. Apart from these, we also have PCB spacers and mounting screws to attach your board to the base plate. And the number of these is variable. ProtoStax Enclosure for Arduino supports both the Arduino Uno and the Mega footprints, and so comes with 6 PCB spacers and 6 screws. And as I had mentioned earlier, you may also have 1 or 2 additional pieces. The first thing that I'm going to do is going to take one of the rubber feet. This comes with a little bit of a well that's on the bottom side, and I'm going to take one of the hex nuts and I'm going to insert it into the bottom part of the rubber foot and use something to push it in to make sure that it is seated nicely. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that with all of the other rubber feet. The next thing I'm going to do is take a lower vertical bracing element along with its washer, insert it through one corner of the base plate, take a washer for the rubber foot and a rubber foot and insert the washer, and then the rubber foot with the nut in the back just screws on. Voila. I'm going to go ahead and do that with the other four sides. Okay, so here I have a completed base plate with its protective rubber feet ready to take on the board. In that case, I'm going to use an Arduino Uno, and I'm going to use the PCB spacers. Place the board on top and then screw the board onto the base plate like so. As the spacers move around, you might need to adjust it a little bit. Oops. Since I'm trying to do this in front of the camera, I don't get the best angle personally, so I have to fumble around a little bit. My apologies. There we go. We call this the platform configuration, wherein your board is mounted onto the base plate, and this is now firmly mounted and with rubber feet to protect it. It also offers open access to your board, so it helps you with your prototyping and also allows you to add the walls and finish up the enclosure later on. So this is the first step in your prototyping. In fact, what I have done is I actually just take all of my boards and have them mounted on my base plate with the rubber feet. And this is actually how I store them. The next time I have a project in question, I will just pick my board of choice and I'm good to go. So I actually store these like this. ProtoStax enclosures are stackable and modular. So for example, if you have let me move these out of the way. Let's say that you have a project that you're doing where you have a breadboard with some components on it. You can put that on another ProtoStax enclosure and have these stacked side by side. How to stack, I will actually talk about in another video. Just understand that it's possible to connect these two guys together so that they form one unit. And it's also possible to stack units vertically, or you can stack them horizontally and vertically. But in order to keep things simple, I'm just going to talk about those in a separate video. Let's say that I have a RGB LED hat that I'm using. I have finished programming my board. Now I want to go ahead and close it up. I have a couple of options. So first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and add the upper bracing elements. Now that these guys are in place, I have two choices. One is I can decide to omit the side walls and just put the top on. In that case, we call it an open configuration because the enclosure gives you open access to the stuff inside, but still offers it a good amount of protection. So in that case, what we do is we just take one of the washers, place it above the vertical bracing element, place the screw on top of the top plate, and just screw it in. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process for the other three sides. All right, that is ProtoStax enclosure in open configuration. But let's say that I really would like to have it fully enclosed. So I want to go ahead and put the side walls in. Here's how I would do that. Let me open up the top again. Now I can go ahead and add the side walls. If you notice, the side walls have tabs that fit in the slots, and the tabs are more widely spaced on the bottom and closer together on the top. The reason for that is when you're vertically stacking different boards, then the tabs that are more widely spaced would fit over the tabs that are closer together, and so this allows for vertical stacking. So the point to note is that the tabs that are more widely spaced should go on the bottom of the enclosure. I will go ahead and put the short side walls. This one is has cutouts for the power and the USB ports, and just slides in like that. Next, I am going to place the top plate on first and just jiggle things around a little bit and finesse it. Don't apply too much pressure or you might end up cracking the acrylic. And then I'm going to take the washer and I'm going to insert it in the space. The side walls hold the washer in place, so it just makes it convenient to do it in this order. Next, I'm going to place the screw on top of the top plate and screw it in. I'm going to repeat the process for the other three sides. Take the washer, place it below the top plate where it's held in place by the side walls. Insert the screw on top of the top plate and screw it in. And we have our fully enclosed Arduino here. This is called the fully closed configuration. I mentioned that it's possible to stack and ProtoStax enclosures horizontally and vertically. But I just wanted to also mention that once you have a couple of finished ProtoStax enclosures, they themselves can be just stacked one on top of the other. I mean, they're not connected together, but the rubber feet have little dips in them that fit the screws, and so they can stack together. So this is useful for storage. Sometimes you might want to interface with the external world. You might want to connect your Arduino to something that is outside of the enclosure. And ProtoStax allows you to do that. We have the sidewall, and the sidewall has a little bit of a cutout here. And you can take your wires and slip it through the space in the top and around. And then close it up like before. And now you have your Arduino that has all of its wiring, and it's protected from fingers and from accidental pullout, but also can now hook up to a breadboard or something that is external to the enclosure. Similarly, other enclosures like that for the Raspberry Pi has not only the cable cutout here, but it also has a GPIO cutout. It's not fully cut out. It has three tabs that you can break off to expose the GPIO, and so you can attach a cable to your GPIO ports and then interface it to something external to the enclosure. Lastly, I wanted to introduce ProtoStax Project Hub, which is hosted on Hackster, and it contains a bunch of fun projects for you to try out. Currently, it has projects for Arduinos and Raspberry Pis, but we will be adding projects for other platforms as well. All the instructions as well as all of the source code is available, along with build descriptions for the project. We hope you will check them out and enjoy them. And please go ahead and add yourself as a member of the ProtoStax Project Hub to be notified of new projects and to keep abreast of different projects coming up. I hope this video has been helpful for you to get started with ProtoStax Enclosures. Watch out for our other videos that demonstrate more features of ProtoStax, like stacking, or our modular extension kits that give your enclosures even more functionality by swapping in and out pieces. Our project videos give you fun little projects to try out with full instructions and source code. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and bell icon to be notified when we publish our next video. On behalf of the team at ProtoStax, I'm Sridhar Rajagopal. See you next time.